Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to be discussing Antifragile by Nassim Taleb. And this was a book that I had started immediately after another book of his called Black Swan. And early in the book, maybe I think 20, 30 pages in, I had started... So after finishing the last book, prior to starting this book, I had started following Taleb on Twitter because I so enjoyed reading Black Swan, and I still think it was a great book. And I saw his interactions on Twitter, and I thought, this guy is just so arrogant, so full of himself. And I thought, I don't know if I can keep reading. It's that classic question of, can I separate the author or the artist from his books or her art? And I think at that time, I just wasn't having it. I unfollowed him and I put the book down. And some years later, I came back to the text because I keep hearing it referenced by people who I really respect. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to give it a try. I don't need to follow him on Twitter. It doesn't matter. And it's probably the best book I've read this year. It's, as is the case for all of Taleb's books, he takes a single idea and then keeps weaving around it with different aspects of the problem, different proofs, different ways of looking at it, different cultural tells. So, can you read a book from someone who is incredibly annoying and arrogant in his or her real life? Yes, I think you can. Can you still get great knowledge out of it? Yes, I think you can. So I did it. I hope that you can do it as well. For me, the reason why is because ideas are so valuable. You can't decide that you're only going to take them from humble people. In fact, if we were only able to take ideas from humble people, maybe we wouldn't be left with too many ideas as a human species anyway. But the subtitle of the book, Things That Gain from Disorder. This idea of anti-fragile as more than resilient. Resilient means that something bad happens and it's fine. Anti-fragile, something bad happens and something gets stronger. And the idea that threads through the book is our problem as a species, both societally and individually. We try to protect against disorder. We try to protect against randomness, whether this be things like car insurance, which seems fairly innocuous. However, it's required in many countries, particularly in the United States. Or things like the Federal Reserve, so-called Federal Reserve in the U.S., manipulating interest rates to make sure that there's no recession or that inflation will be limited. But the reality is, and Taleb goes through numerous cases to illustrate this, that when we try to smooth out a line and make sure that everything is quote-unquote normal, we create even larger disasters. An analogy to think about is forests which gather an amount of wood and detritus over time, which when humans weren't around, periodically lightning would strike and then the forest would burn and then it would regenerate. We have over time realized that this is how nature takes care of itself. It doesn't need humans around to start fires or to set fires. It can do well on its own. So the problem is we are continuing to try to set fires, or we're trying to make sure things are leveled out. This doesn't normally work. It didn't work at the time of the Great Depression. It hasn't worked economically. Those of us who are living now in this post-2020 period into 2023, we're seeing that you can print all the money that you want to try to make sure that things, quote-unquote, don't go bad. Things still go bad. And we should, rather than try to tell people that nothing bad is ever going to happen in your life, or that if something bad does happen, we can make it good, we can make it fine right away, that we have to allow mistakes to be information, and we have to allow randomness to happen. That if we were to tell people, look, things may shift wildly, things that may appear to be bad may happen, but we can't protect you against that. This is just how it's going to be, and deal with it as a society. But instead, we insist on treating everybody like their children, and that nothing bad is ever going to happen to you, except hopefully good parents don't do this. Good parents don't wrap their children in cotton wool and say nothing bad's ever going to happen. I'm never going to let you fall. That parents will sometimes let their children fall in a playground or make a mistake on a paper, whatever it might be. Mistakes are information. So that ties into the second part of this prescription of let things happen. Is we even see this in fiction and in nonfiction, a corollary to this, that when you allow things to discover, and it's not a carefully choreographed, controlled path, wonderful things can happen. I'm thinking of So Great They Can't Ignore You by Cal Newport, in which he talks about the process of discovery and how untrue most celebrities or people at the top of their fields narrative about how they got there is. That it wasn't this happened and this happened and this happened. It was an opportunity developed from pursuing interests, and there's an element of randomness to that journey, and that's to be celebrated. That isn't to be worried that it wasn't this controlled path. The same thing occurs in End of Eternity by Isaac Asimov, in which there's a without telling you the whole story. The idea is in the future, time travel is enabled, which allows a master group of time travelers to go back and make sure certain civilizations on certain worlds are fixed, that there is a narrative. But what they realize at the end of this, and it's called the End of Eternity, because eternity is what is driving these fixes, is that it just creates this line of mediocrity. If you go back and you're always trying to tinker and you're always trying to fix, instead of allowing randomness to happen, allowing large events which are, let's say, sometimes are mistakes, to give you information, you're really missing out. And so why you'll look at, the book is not short, so it's about 500 pages. Why is it such a pleasure to read? Because of the way that Taleb writes. He's an incredibly well-educated person. He's read a lot, and he's able to tie ideas from literature and history and mathematics and politics and science together in something that allows the reader to just keep going down this rabbit hole with him. It's something that he's thought about a lot in his life. And what I also like is his resistance to some sort of nugget, that a lot of business books or personal development books, this book is neither, try to give you nice little sound bites. And I have myself given you some of my favorite quotes, but he doesn't write in that way. It's not as if he's trying to sell you something. He's simply trying to, in a very leisurely way, explain to you his larger ideas. And although it's unlikely that our governments or our society will take on board this advice to say, look, bad things will happen. We can't control against them. We can't predict them. Stop trying to predict things. Stop trying to control things. Live your life. I don't think that society is going to take that on board. I don't think governments will take that on board. But humans can, to great benefit. I think that we, as humans, can stop trying to control things, stop trying to plan for everything. And what this can lead to pragmatically, what's a practical effect of this, is something he calls the via negativa. This idea of subtracting things from your life. Be very intentional about what it is that you do, what you spend your time on, the sort of medical procedures that you undergo. And it's too complicated to go into here, the way that he walks through the upside and the downside, concave and convex results, that oftentimes a very small positive could result, but a very big negative could result from a medical procedure. And sometimes the question is, a very small upside, very big downside, maybe just let it be. That there are so many things in life that fall into the same calculus of not much of an upside, incredible downside if I go through it. And you want to be on the other side of that. You want to be on the convex side of things. You want to benefit from situations in which others could greatly not benefit from. In any case, larger discussion. I could probably talk another couple hours on this book, but my two main lessons are for number one, don't be as much as hard as it might be. It only occurs occasionally in the writing itself where his arrogance comes out. It's not throughout the book. And it's definitely all 100% full-time on Twitter. So ignore him on Twitter. Enjoy the text and enjoy going deeper into his argument. As I say, don't take my word for it. I'm arguing that mistakes are information and that you should allow more randomness into your life and you should stop trying to control everything. I totally buy into that. But I think you should read the text to hear his argument for it. You're going to enjoy it. And it may become for you, as it has been for me, one of the best books that you've read this year. If you like the video, please hit like. Please subscribe to see other videos like this. If you'd like to support my work, there's a Patreon link below. There'll also be a link to buy this book if you'd like to support my work that way. Until next time, enjoy your reading.